Boys, this video is going to cover everything that you need to know about stunting in college football 26. Now, you might be asking yourself, why have I not made this video a little bit earlier? Obviously, stunting has been in this game since the start of the game, but the biggest thing about it is you actually couldn't pick stunts from your play call screen. It was a little bit bugged at the start of the year, but now you can. But first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about our coaching adjustment. So I'm pressing down on the right analog stick, R3, and you don't need to do anything about your coaching adjustments, right? Just want to check this box right here. There's no specific coaching adjustments that you need to do with this. Now, this video is also going to cover everything that you could possibly imagine wanting to know about stunting. I'm going to go over every scenario that is possible, how to do it, why to do it, some of my favorite stunts, and then also how to maximize your stunts. So just first and foremost, let's go ahead and talk about how do you even pick a stunt. Now, as I was just referring to, is you couldn't actually pick them at the play call screen in online gameplay. I do believe that they worked in offline gameplay, but for my online players, which I believe is the majority of you, you could not pick it from the play call screen. So how you pick a stunt, it's very simple, very straightforward. I am just going to hold down the icon of the play that I want to pick. So I want to pick Tampa 2 right here. As you guys can see, I'm holding square right here. And as you guys can see, all these stunts get pulled up. Now, it's important to note that the moment I let go, right, of it, that stunt is then picked, right? So you need to make sure you hold it down. And then with the left analog stick, or the left D-pad, you then want to go ahead and scroll through. So my left analog stick, this guy right here. And as you guys can see, I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll through like this. I can also do this with my right D-pad here. Sorry, I just wanna make sure the camera was looking good for you guys. And as you guys can see, I have the option of all these different stunts, as you guys can see. Now, the next thing though about this is not every formation is guaranteed to have stunts. It is more likely to happen in 3D line sets, and it's very much more, it's a lot better, excuse me, in just 4 down line sets. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm actually gonna go ahead and pick prevent right here. Same thing I just talked about, I'm gonna hold down square. And as you guys can see, there are no stunts that are pulled up right here. So it is important to note that you primarily want to be in 4 down line sets. Now, it's not like you have to be in 4 down line sets, but it is just going to be more effective in 4 down line sets, unless you're going to pick dime 2-3 odd, also really just known as dollar right here. And essentially what you'll see is even if a 3 down line set even has the options of stunts, first of all, they're just not going to be as good in my personal opinion. And you're also not going to get all these different options. Now, there are 12 different stunts that you can pick in this game. And some of the 4 down line sets might actually not be able to pick all 12 different options. You're just more than likely going to have more options to pick from those formations. I'm going to go ahead and just pick this standard stunt right here, just so you guys can kind of see what it looks like in a 3 down line set. As you guys can see, my D end is technically stunting right here, but there's really nothing that he is like stunting with, right? He's not stunting with like another pass rusher, etc. So like a stunt like this, right? It's just like not going to be, actually, you know, it actually got some like pretty good push. It actually got better push than what I thought it was going to get, but really it's just going to be a lot more effective out of those 4 down line sets. Real quick, boys, if you guys are a CFB26 or a Madden 26 player, you guys want to have more fun and win more, throw touchdowns like this, and then bag the most annoying of offenses, make sure you guys check out civil.gg, where I drop my tournament winning schemes on. We recently did a survey that said 98.1% of players that sign up win more. For a limited time, use code Dcroft 40 to save 40% off yearly and monthly memberships. Once you sign up, you'll get instant access to the schemes to start winning more. So the next thing I do want to talk about is now after you have gone ahead and you have picked the play, what do you want to look for at the line of scrimmage? Now I'm just going to go ahead and pick this left exit 2-man right here. We'll go ahead and focus later on in this video about my favorite ones, but let's go ahead and focus at the defensive line. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my player right here. And as you guys can see, we are stunting. If the offense is going to hike the ball, you guys can see that the stunt is working as intended, right? You know, we were able to get it. Now, it is just a 4 down line set. So it is more than likely that the offensive line with 5 people is going to pick it up more often than not. But what I really want to talk about is when you can and when you cannot change your stunt. So if you go ahead and click left on the D-pad right here, there is going to be the defensive line options that we then pull up. As you guys can see, the left analog stick is going to change the movement. spread, right, pinch, and left. The right analog stick is then going to change the point of attack. Slant inside, slant right, slant inside, and slant left. R1 is also going to pull up stunts, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But if I go ahead and shift my defensive line in any way, the stunt is always going to stay registered. I'm going to go ahead and spread them right there. I'm going to go ahead and pinch right now. I'm going to go ahead and move them to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and move them to the right. As you guys can see, we have the option of moving our offensive line however we want. Now, this is going to be important for stunting because the initial alignment of your defensive line is going to be essential for getting the best stunt possible. Now, the flip side of that, though, is going to be the point of attack. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do right here is show you guys what happens when I go ahead and slant up. So as you guys can see, I just slanted outside right here. And as you guys can see, the stunt did go away. So you cannot slant in any way because the moment you slant it is just going to entirely nullify the stunt. So you want to make sure that when it comes to point of attack, that when you do happen to stunt in this game, that you don't want to have like a specific pass rush, you know, crashing right, crashing to the left, etc., right? You know, stunting is like, it's almost like its own little like play call menu, and then the point of attack is just a different way of being able to potentially generate pressure, right? They're two entirely different things. Now, we are next going to talk about the R1 button right here, which is actually just going to go ahead and pull up stunts right here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to the play call screen. And let's just say, right, that you don't happen to pick a stunt, right? So you just go ahead and I just pick a play like I've done in every other game ever, right? So I have no stunt currently assigned to my play, right? Now, what you can go ahead and do is, again, left on the D-pad right here, and then the R1 button. That is then going to pull up stunts. Now, on this menu, you are only going to see 4 different options for stunts initially, right? Initially, and I say that very importantly because you can change this. If you go ahead with the left or right on the D-pad right here, you can then go ahead and scroll through the different stunt options, right? So as you can see, I'm just going to go like left on the D-pad right here. We do have a total of 8 different stunts that we can pick between, and it's just going to be that option at that line of scrimmage that you can then go and audible to a different stunt. Now, you might be wondering, why would you ever want to do this, right? Why would I ever want to go ahead and have my stunt be picked differently at the line of scrimmage instead of my play call screen? So what actually happens in this game is if you play somebody hurrying up their offense, right? So if I go ahead and just pick like a stunt, right? When I get to the line of scrimmage the first time, stunt going to work perfectly effectively. If the offense hurries up in this situation, the stunt is not going to register the next time. Now, quick adjusting your stunts has been in the game and it has actually worked in online gameplay too. So it is something that I would strongly recommend you guys also get comfortable with, because it is going to be something that's very effective against those people that just spam hurry up the entire game, right? You know, maybe they're spamming hurry up to go ahead and get you out of the stunt, right? I'm just going to go ahead and like reset my play right here. It looks like my play art's looking a little bit funky right here, but as you guys can see, I'm going to go ahead left on that D-pad and then the R1 button. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly adjust to this Texas 4-man right here. As you guys can see, we go ahead and have the Texas 4-man now on the screen. So that is going to be a very important thing that you guys do get used to. You know, picking it at the play call screen is going to be easier, but I would strongly recommend you get used to that quick adjustment to essentially just combat those people that are going to spam hurry up against you. Now, we've talked about stunting, we've talked about defensive line alignment, what you want to potentially look for, and just the basics of stunting. Now, let's go ahead and get even further into this. Can you contain when quarterback stunting? The answer is actually yes and no. And what I mean by yes and no is that if your defensive end is on the stunt, you cannot contain that defensive end. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a stunt right here, which is just going to be a standard right text 2-man, right? So we'll go ahead and pick a right text 2-man right here. As you guys can go ahead and see, the right side of my screen is currently on a stunt. Now, to quarterback contain, very simple. You want to click the R1 button right here, and then you want to click the L1 button. That is going to be quarterback contain. I'm then going to pull up my play art right here like this. As you guys can see, my stunt is not going to contain. He is never going to contain if he is in a stunt. Now, we can obviously go ahead and talk about that little tip I talked about earlier, right? Let's just go ahead and say you change your mind at the line of scrimmage. I could go ahead and slant inside, right? Cancel that stunt and then just contain like standard like this. But if you want to go ahead and just keep that stunt on the field, you can contain one side, you just can't contain the other side. Now, for example, something like a defensive line stunt right here. So like a, let's go ahead and see if we can find one right here. These are all left. I think that, I'm not sure why. I thought this formation, I think this is a defensive tackle stunt right here. Yeah, this is a defensive tackle stunt. Let me just confirm right here. So yeah, so as you guys can see, my defensive tackles are stunting right here. So both of my defensive ends can be in a contain. Now, I don't think this stunt is effective personally. I actually think it's one of the worst stunts. Half the time when you actually call this stunt, they don't even stun. Like you can see, like there's a little bit of fight right there by the D tackle right there, but it's just not one of my favorite stunts in this game. Just so you guys can also go ahead and see it too, because I didn't hike the play there. I'll go ahead and pick a defensive end stunt right here, just so you guys can see with your own eyes, right, what I am talking about. So right text 2-man right here, just what we have been calling throughout the majority of this. Go ahead and talk about that contain that we were just talking about. Go ahead and hike the ball in offense. As you guys can see, that left side of the screen is being contained, while the right side of the screen is working on that effective stunt. So it's something to be mindful of, right? You know, if you're playing somebody that's like scrambling and rolling out every single play, I don't know how much I would necessarily use these stunts. I do like the quarterback contain, but let's go ahead and get into my next thing, which is my two most favorite stunts in this game and why I like to call both of these stunts. So the first stunt is actually going to be to help contain the quarterback, right? So I'm actually going to go ahead and do right here is I'm going to pick right pirate 3-man. I want to just go ahead and be in a Tampa 2 right here. And we want to pick right pirate 3-man right here. Now, what this is going to be very effective of is, as you guys can see, this defensive tackle right here is going to be stunting all the way around, right? Now, the reason why I picked right pirate 3-man instead of, let's say, like left pirate 3-man is because it is a right-handed quarterback. Now, it is more likely for a right-handed quarterback to roll out to his throwing arm side. So what I'm going to go ahead and do right here is hike the play, and I'm going to try to roll out right here. And actually right there, he gets a little bit caught up. I probably wouldn't recommend pinching right here. You know, I do want to focus on the initial alignment your defense is in, right? You know, the alignment actually does drastically change how these stunts do work. I didn't think it was going to drastically change it right there. And as you guys can see, like right there, it does a really good job at getting to the outside, right? If I was to instantly roll out, I wouldn't have probably been able to get to the edge. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys it right here. I'm going to try to get to the outside right here. And as you guys can see, right, he is right there to meet us, right? He is just not going to allow us to get to that edge. Now, the counter argument of this, right, I could potentially just roll out to this side, right? And that's just kind of like the game that you are playing with stunts, right? You know, stunting isn't going to do the best job ever at containing, but something like this, right, where I can really limit at least the throwing side arm of the quarterback, that is something that I could do, right? So it is just important to realize when to use and when not to use a stunt. So this is, again, more of those stunts that I like to use that involve the right arm of the throwing for the quarterback to help keep him in the pocket. Now, the second way that I really like to stunt is going to be just collapsing the pocket, right? You know, this isn't going to do a good job at containing the quarterback. I want to make sure that's very clear that I don't use this stunt to contain the quarterback. If I'm playing a fast quarterback, I probably would never recommend for you to actually use this stunt. Now, the stunt is actually just going to be the Texas foreman. Now, Texas foreman and El Paso foreman, similar in ways, you know, I don't think that there is a massive difference between them. I think they are effective, but I do think the Texas foreman is just slightly better. Now, the reason why I like the Texas foreman a little bit more, I just find it to do a better job at like collapsing the pocket. Like, you can see that like alignment that the defensive end does get, right? He gets like a really good job at staying outside of that guard right there. And again, like it's just like a collapse the pocket style of defense. Now, again, I can probably roll out against this. I don't want to act like there isn't counters for this. Anything that's called on offense, anything that's called on defense, a good player is always going to have a right counter to it. And again, we're just trying to find different ways of being able to generate pass rush. You could go ahead and like pinch your defensive line too, right? If you wanted, you know, to be able to get that little bit of a different crash, right? In terms of like how the defense is going to push the pocket. But again, it's just going to be a very standard thing that I like to do. And I think that it's going to be something that for a lot of you guys is going to just create havoc, right? And that's like a big thing about these stunts. Even if they're not necessarily coming in every single play, you should always look for these stunts to generate good pressure. And the reason why I like this stunt maybe a little bit more than just like a standard 4-man pass rush, it also just changes the eyes of the quarterback, right? They have to be a little bit more aware of their pocket, right? A standard 4-man pass rush, a lot of people have just been dealing with this for a long period of time, and I just don't think a standard 4-man pass rush is as good as the Texas 4-man. Now, the last thing I do want to talk about when it just comes to this entire video of stunting is it's going to go ahead and be abilities. Now, what I have noticed with abilities specifically, and what you're kind of looking for with these players, excuse me, do not need to go to my settings there, is you really just look for speed. Speed is the most important thing that you could possibly do. But the other thing I really notice is that any defensive player with the ability quick jump is going to be good. And I don't think the tier of quick jump also matters. Now, obviously I have Braylon Wilson who has platinum quick jump, but I've noticed really like bronze quick jump be just as effective as a platinum quick jump in this game, right? A lot different than last year's game. Like platinum was like a tier above like really any other ability, right? For me, I just don't notice a massive difference from like a bronze quick jump to a platinum quick jump. And I know that sounds like kind of crazy, but in my time of playing this game for, let's just say, around like 3 weeks, give or take, that is something I have really noticed in this game. Now, when it comes to stunting too, one last thing that I forgot to say is that you can also pair this with other people blitzing, right? So I could go ahead and like blitz a middle backer if I really wanted to, right? So again, I'm just going to go ahead and blitz my middle backer right here. Now, I think as the year goes on, you will start to see people pair up meta blitzes with stunts. I think stunts are going to make blitzing in this game really insane. We're still so early on in this game, boys, and really just as of today, they just finally allowed us to pick stunting from the play call screen, right, for the entire player database. So it's going to be something that I think once people really start to get more familiar with, I think you guys really will see a stunt meta throughout the majority of this year. But boys, that covers everything I believe you could possibly need to know about stunting. Now, there may have been something that has been missed within this video. If there is, boys, don't be afraid to leave a comment in the comment section. I actually respond to every single one of your comments. So if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to ask me down below. But I appreciate you guys all a ton. I hope this video was informational and helpful for you. And I'll see you guys all next time.